All right, my name is Allison Shelton. I'm going to be our host this evening. I sit on the board of directors of High-Tech High Heels. During the day, I work at HCL Technologies, and High-Tech High Heels is really how I give back. I'm so thankful that you've joined us today for our first virtual event for STEMpact 2020. I'm going to spend a few minutes here to kick us off, just telling you a little bit about High-Tech High Heels' history and kind of how we go about our mission. So starting in 2001, a group of 30 women at Texas Instruments set out to increase the number of women in STEM professions. Their research concluded that closing the gender gap requires addressing the leak in the STEM pipeline, which, by the way, starts as early as elementary, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And they set out to fund programs that would inspire and engage girls in STEM and ensure that teachers and educators were practicing gender equity in education. Then in 2015, we became officially a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And in 2019, we gave out our $1 millionth in grants. In 2021, we're going to turn 20 years old, and we hope that you'll join us to celebrate our anniversary. All right, so we'll take a brief look at today's gender gap in STEM. Only 30% of the positions in the science and engineering workforce today are held by women. And actually only 15% in the engineering workforce are held by women. And 20% of engineering and computer science undergraduate degrees are awarded to women. And actually only 6% of those degrees are awarded to women of color. And 4 in 5 STEM college students said that they decided their field of study in high school or earlier. Women are dropping out of the pipeline early as elementary, and we're calling this the leak in the STEM pipeline. So we set out to address that leak and make sure that we can close the hole fill the pipeline of women in the US STEM talent pool. So our goal at High-Tech High Heels is to prepare girls in K through 12 to enter college degree programs in STEM. So a little bit about how we approach this mission. Here at High-Tech High Heels, we believe that early exposure is key to forming positive associations with STEM. We believe in an ecosystem that provides diverse, layered programming over time, in building and equipping advocates by engaging teachers and families in addition to girls, that diversity in the workplace fuels innovation, that our relationships with the community should be a partnership, and finally, that our expertise, experience, and proven track record equips us to direct our supporters' resources and funds in the most impactful way. All right, so here's how you can help us with the mission. You can participate with us, donate your time and get involved. If you'd like any additional information about how to do that, just reach out to us at info@hightechhighheels.org. Please advocate for us. Follow us on social media to stay up to date on what we're doing. Share that message with friends and coworkers so that we can expand our audience. And of course, please consider giving financially. We are a 100% volunteer-led organization, so every dollar that you donate goes directly back to the mission. And then tomorrow is actually North Texas Giving Day. And if you follow us on social media already, or you're already in our database, you probably know that we've been running a STEM Power a Girl campaign for the last few weeks. So we would love to have your support on North Texas Giving Day if you've not already participated in our STEM Power a Girl campaign. The pandemic has really made things tough for nonprofits like ours and for many of us individually. So a recurring donation is just a great way to be able to give back, but during uncertain times. So a couple of the ways you can do that: $125 a month or $1,500 a year provides STEM equity training to a teacher or counselor who gets to impact many, many students. $1,000 a year or $85 a month sends a girl to a week-long aviation camp where she'll learn the science behind flying and have in-flight experiences. $780 a month or a year, or $65 a month, sends a girl to a 10-day physics summer camp, which is proven to make girls 2.6 times more likely to earn a STEM degree and 5 times more likely to earn an engineering degree. $540 a year, or $45 a month, sends 5 girls to an after-school program in STEM. And $240 a year, or just $20 a month, funds a girl's attendance at an after-school program in STEM summer camp. Thanks again for letting me share with you a little bit about our history and what we do and how we go about doing it. And now we're going to transition into the next part of the program. So I'm going to introduce to you Kathy Curry. She's a technology manager at State Farm Insurance Companies. Kathy has held numerous positions over a span of 39 years with State Farm and is currently leading the STEM and intern programs in the DFW community, along with providing staffing solutions for State Farm's IT leaders in Richardson. Kathy is on the Tech Titans Board of Directors, which is a nonprofit organization that, among other things, is heavily involved in STEM activities for middle and high school students. Kathy?
Thank you, Allison. I appreciate that intro. Hi, everybody. I am really very excited to be with you all this evening. As Allison said, I'm Kathy Curry. You know, while I've had a rich 39 years with State Farm, I've been so blessed to have so many different careers across various departments and locations. But I would have to say that my current role is really my all-time favorite, because I truly lead an outstanding team of individuals who they impact the lives of so many people internally within our company and externally within our local community. As Allison said, my team provides customized staffing and resource solutions for State Farm's IT leaders in Dallas. And we engage with the local community to provide or to promote IT here at State Farm. And then one way that we do this is through our on-campus events, where we recruit computer science interns. We also give back to the community in ways that support STEM and grades K through 12. We believe in engaging with young girls as early as possible to get them excited about technology and careers in technology. And speaking of engaging with younger girls, tonight you'll have an opportunity to hear how J.C. Cheney's experience in the Eureka program at Girls Inc. fueled her interest in pursuing an engineering degree in college. With that, I'll turn it over to J.C.
Hello, my name is J.C. Cheney, and I graduated this June as Lancaster High School's 2020 valedictorian. This fall, I'm going to the University of Texas at Austin to study aerospace engineering. I remember being in middle school and interviewing to be in the Girls in Eureka program. I was so nervous because I hadn't had to go through an application process like that before. After I found out that I was going to be participating in the program, I was extremely excited, as you might imagine. The very first summer, I was still nervous because I wasn't sure if I'd make any friends or if I'd even like the program. But after just the first few days, I really got into what we were learning. Science was one of my favorite subjects already, but because I hadn't been exposed to the careers in science, I wasn't interested enough in it to pursue a career in it. However, after we did the experiments, it made me want to learn even more about science. I remember making rockets to learn about physics and aerodynamics, and even building a catapult to launch fruit across a field. At school, we rarely got to do stuff like that, so I'm very appreciative that I got to be exposed to that in the Eureka program. The fourth year, my cohort got to take the ACT, SAT prep lessons before our senior year began. I already took the ACT at school, but I still needed to take the SAT, and I was extremely nervous. These prep lessons were extremely helpful. It exposed us to the layout of the test and a few tips and tricks to make sure we could do the best that we could during the time constraint. I was so nervous to get my results back, but once I did, I knew that the lessons helped so much. In my third and fifth summer, I got to participate in month-long internships. The first was at Pioneer Natural Resources as an accounting intern, and the second was at Texas Women's University as an IT intern. I learned so many valuable lessons in these positions. I learned how different workplaces fostered different environments and relationships between coworkers. I learned what different types of things employers might look for in potential employees. And most importantly, I learned about many different fields in each industry. I learned what aspects of each I did and didn't like, and I'm extremely grateful that I got to learn that because going into my senior year, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. But I used what I learned to pick a program that I thought would fit me best. Throughout my 5 years in the Girls Inc. Eureka program, I got to meet so many girls around my age. Within my own cohort, I made one of my closest friends today that I know I wouldn't have met because we both went to different schools. Thanks to Girls Inc. for creating the Eureka program and supporting us throughout the years, we were exposed to so many new and exciting topics. And I would like to say a very special thank you to sponsors like High Tech High Heels for making this all possible. I know without your help, the Eureka program would not exist, and for that, I'm extremely grateful.
All right, thanks so much, Kathy, for introducing JC, and a big thank you and congratulations to JC and Girls Inc. for all that you do and for sharing the story. All right, so we're going to move on now to our STEMpact Award presentation. The Stimpact Award is a recognition of partners within our community who, among other things, work toward improving STEM education, mentor and inspire the next generation, provide hands-on learning opportunities for girls, and generally bring us closer to closing the gender gap in STEM. Today, we're going to recognize 3 amazing community partners and review their impact on the girls that they work with directly and on the broader mission. The second annual STEMpact Award winner will receive a $1,000 donation to the organization of their choice. And without further ado, I will present our 3 nominees. So this year's STEMpact 2020 nominees are Raul Hinojosa Jr., Wanda Gass, and Carlin Ray. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about these people and the fantastic work that they're doing. So under Raul's leadership, the Department of Community Engagement at UTD provides accessible, collaborative STEM engagement opportunities for low socioeconomic middle and high school students in the Dallas area, including 2 female-centric STEM programs and hosting more than 91 events and serving 5,300 children and their parents annually. Wanda Gass is responsible for expanding the reach of a successful summer physics camp for young women. The program has been offered to young women in the Dallas ISD area for over 10 years, and with the intent of preparing more women to choose and persist in STEM degrees in college. And Carlin Ray has found a non-traditional way to spark STEAM interest in local youth. In 2013, Carlin established Art Reaching Out, which is a nonprofit organization that exposes students to glass art through hands-on STEAM-based experiences. A huge thank you to Raul, Wanda, and Carlin for all that you do and the significant impact that you're making on girls' lives. And I am pleased to announce that the 2020 STEMpact Award goes to Raul Hinojosa Jr. So Raul, if there weren't a virtual situation here, I'm sure there would be clapping. We're all very happy to honor you tonight, and I'd like to invite you to introduce yourself and say a few words.
Yeah, so hello everybody. Thank you for, so this is such a great honor. I'm so humbled and happy for this recognition. I appreciate it, and I know all of the other finalists, and they all do great work. And so thank you for the recognition coming from High Tech High Heels. This is a great honor. I'd also like to just say that the work that we do relies on lots of people for support. And so thanks to all of the professionals, the volunteers, the sponsors, the students, the parents, school district partners, everyone who helps us make it possible. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks again, Raul, and congratulations. I'm now going to turn the mic over to Jaren Langridge, who's going to introduce herself and lead us on a discussion of the state in STEM.
All right. Well, we're so excited that everyone's here. My name's Jaren Langridge, and I am on the board of High Tech High Heels. I am also the director of network operations for One Share Health here in Dallas. So my background in STEM is I have a master's of science in speech language pathology, but really, why do I get involved with high-tech high heels? It really comes from having a daughter who is looking at going to the university next year. She's a senior, my baby, and she wants to be an architectural engineer. So she has been involved at Bertner STEM High School in the Richardson School District. And the other reason that I am involved with high-tech high heels is not just about my daughter that drives my passion, obviously, but also I have a son. And I want my son to realize what it is to value to work with women in leadership position and to also, you know, support women in STEM as well. So that's who I am, and I'm excited to moderate the panel. So what I'd like to do is one by one is I'm going to introduce them, and then we're going to bring them on with us. So I am thrilled to have Dr. Claire Aldridge. I just call her Claire, but Claire comes from, she calls herself a translator or a liaison. So she has a scientific background. She's also worked in commercialization. She's brought new technology to the forefront. She's going to talk a little bit more about, you know, what she does as the Associate Vice President for Commercialization and Business Development at UT Southwestern. But one of the things, she has a very diverse background. And we're going to learn a little bit more, not just about her, but some of the things that are happening that are also going to help decrease this STEM gap that we're talking about for our young girls. So we're excited to have Claire. Our next panelist, he's going to be the only man on the panelist. So Tom Foley. Tom, we're not going to hold it against you that you're an attorney, but Tom really actually is innovative in that he's got a diverse background. He's a economic leader. He is a lawyer. He teaches also as an adjunct faculty member. He also is doing something very innovative to decrease, you know, being innovative as a social entrepreneur. You know, decreasing the gender and racial wealth gap with the Study USA. And he also founded On Par, Parity Through Access and Realism. So we're going to talk a little bit more about Tom, his entrepreneur, how he can be, you know, an advocate for decreasing the gender gap in STEM. So welcome, Tom. And then not last but least at all by any means, and little did I know, and Kendra, I know that you were in Lancaster, but I didn't know really until recently that JC was one of her kids when she was in Lancaster. So this is full circle. So this makes me even more excited to have this conversation. But Kendra is the Executive Director of STEM and Innovation for Richardson Independent School District. Now, I benefit from, you know, we benefit from RSD, but we know other districts like Lancaster that you came from, the ISD. But Kendra was a female chemist. You know, she wanted to go to law school. That's not here. I mean, not law school. That's Tom. She wanted to go to med school, but her passion is really STEM education, achievement gaps for females and African Americans in STEM. And we're going to talk a lot tonight about STEM for all, but really STEM focused in for our girls. So welcome, panelists. I'm so excited that you're here. And we're just going to have a conversation this evening. We've got some questions that we're going to ask. And we're going to start with Claire, but what I want to do is I really want to say not just thank you, Claire, Tom, and Kendra, but also to share with our audience, because you all have a different and a very diverse background, and I think bringing us together to have this discussion. But each of you also look at decreasing the gender gap, but STEM in general, it's about partnerships. It's about collaboration, you know, which bring us these opportunities, right? That High Tech High Heels funds, or Tom for, you know, your organization, Claire for yours, and Kendra, it's our kids that benefit from it. And that each one of you, I'm also really excited because all four of us have something very special in common. We all have daughters. And so it's not just about you know, us, about our backgrounds and talking about STEM and how we get excited about it, which you can't tell I do, is that it's personal, right, for all of us here. So what I want to do is kick off our discussion with Claire. So Claire, you know, you're a doctor. I mean, you've got a PhD. I'm going to call you Claire. And you have a PhD in immunology and genetics, right? But you've also got this business background. And a lot of times, I come from healthcare, and a lot of times people don't think that healthcare and STEM, mesh, but they really do. And you've got it in the background of emerging technologies. And if healthcare isn't the end-all, be-all avenue for every kind of STEM, I'm not sure if there's an industry that has every one. But what do you see that healthcare has? And specifically, let's talk about UT Southwestern, here, because if we've got people from other states, on with us, and I hope we do, they may be able to go back and talk, about what UT Southwestern is doing, to decrease this gender gap in girls K through 12. And then also give us some information about what STEM looks like in the real world in healthcare.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the panel. But, healthcare is a fantastic place for STEM because not just the biology part of medicine, there's also, the engineering with all of the medical devices, and then there's a ton of software. So, STEM really does go all the way across the entire healthcare spectrum. And I think one of the things that we need to do, and UT Southwestern does, and we as, women in STEM careers within healthcare, what we need to do is we need to be in our communities. We need to make sure that our young women understand that you don't have to follow that traditional path if you're interested in healthcare of becoming a physician or a nurse or some sort of clinician, that there's a breadth of opportunity. If you're interested in, I think there's two main characteristics you really want to think about as you think about where you might want to go and where healthcare might answer that for you, is do you have the curiosity? I think STEM is such a field of curiosity, but then in the healthcare space is, do you want to improve the quality of people's lives? Do you want to relieve suffering? Do you want to, add years? Do you want to just make people feel better? And then, once you understand that those are the two things that really drive you, then you can start exploring all of the different opportunities within the healthcare space. And my dog just came in the room, so you may see just a little pooch nose. He's not quite tall enough to see you guys, but he's figured out how to open doors, is the end of that story. So, but I think that when you think about healthcare, so many people just think, well, I should be a physician, or I should be a nurse, or something like that. But even beyond that, there's the scientific observation that you could go down the path of discovery and finding new things that might lead the field to change. One of the things about clinical care is that you're really trying to provide the clinical care that's already known. And so without the scientists really pushing those boundaries, you won't know where to take the next scientific discovery and actually change care. But then really in the last 5 years, the bioinformatics and all of the data we're able to start looking at from electronic medical records, from all of the sequencing data, all that, there's huge opportunity at combining computer science with healthcare, and how do we use technology to actually improve people's lives. And interestingly, one of the silver linings from our recent pandemic and the COVID impact on our healthcare system is all of a sudden physicians who've always been very against embracing technology have now said, well, if I don't use telemedicine, I'm not going to see any patients. So, all of these, the platforms that allow telemedicine to happen, that had to be programmed by somebody. So there's this really cool opportunity if you have interest in other areas of STEM, but you really are driven by changing people's outcomes, that's an opportunity that you might want to pursue. And what does STEM look like in the real world? My career, as you mentioned, the commercialization piece of it, where I like to be is that liaison between scientific discovery and how a product gets to market. So what needs to happen after a scientist or a clinician discovers something? How do you actually turn that into a product? You might have heard a lot recently about clinical trials with the COVID vaccines. And there's this very well-established path to take things, scientific discoveries, through the path to make sure they're safe and effective. And that's the place where I really like, because you have the opportunity to have that lasting impact. But when you think about the real world in STEM, what I think a lot about is how do we take science and combine it with another industry? So one of the things that is very, again, people have this idea that if you like science, you're stuck in a lab. But if you like science and you like to write, you can be a science communicator. If you like science, but you also like IT, do something in programming and bioinformatics. So I think that when you start to say that in the real world, science is not just one thing, it's this breadth of opportunity of bringing discovery and curiosity and seeing where that takes you.
Yeah, and I know, at the end of we're coming to the end of our discussion, but we'll keep this going. But you talk about there's this collision too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have, and I think that's so STEM related, right?
Right. It's like molecules, coming together in a beaker to have a reaction. You have to bring those different people together to say, how do we take the scientific discovery and move it into something so that it becomes a product, and that requires collisions.
All right, Claire, thanks. Hopefully we're gonna have some time maybe for some question and answers coming up. So Tom, you're the only man on the panel. And I know we've had this conversation before that through your work, a lot of times you're the only man in the room. Now we've got some men on, so you're not the only one here tonight, so that's the good thing. We love our men. But what role should men play in decreasing the STEM, for girls, decreasing that gender gap, but also creating that pipeline, right, for the future? To what Claire says, not just healthcare, but you are there as far as helping women, minority women to have businesses as well. How does that work for girls? And I want you to talk a little bit about being an advocate, not just an ally too. We've had that discussion. So, and then none of us have unconscious biases, do we? So Tom, give us a little bit of what our men can do for our girls.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me tonight. And I see my only qualification for joining you tonight is that I am a man. I went to a liberal arts school and went into law. So when it comes to numbers, I'm not that strong. I can spell STEM if you're asking, and even STEAM if you ask. So that's my qualification from that end. But I love the question you asked, Jaron, really around being an ally or an advocate. And I take it to the next level of truly being a coach, that it's the responsibility to coach and be involved in the effort. So if we think of the word ally or we think of the word advocate, I'll personalize advocate. So I practiced litigation in New York after law school, and I was an advocate. And
I'm sorry. I just have to say I'm sorry.
Well, I have to know my audience, right? So I moved down to Dallas. I wised up, took some time. But when you are an advocate, if I won or lost, it didn't really have the impact to me, right? I could go home and, if it was a tough loss, I just recover and off I go. But the impact on my client was profound. So if we're going to talk about men's role in driving either gender or racial parity, you have to be on the team, right? The win or the loss has to hit you, and you have to feel it. And if you don't, then you're on the sidelines. And if you're on the sidelines, you're not going to have the impact. And we know, and drawing off a sports analogy, right? If you're the coach, you win or lose as much as your team wins or loses. So from my end, men have to be coaches if it is not personally impacting them. So if I'm not a girl in STEM, so my role is to coach girls in STEM. And then you talk about really that skill set of coaching. So if we think of a talented coach, they know the game inside and out. Maybe they've played portions of the game, but they haven't played every position, but they understand how it should interact. And it's important for the coach that's involved to pull on that empathy, to have a correlation to it. So you talk about being the only man in the room. What's interesting is there have been times where other men, and particularly white men, are the only one in the room, and they'll share stories and they'll say, now I know what it's like. No, you don't, right? That's the one time you talked about it, right? And if it continues to happen consistently where you are the only, and I don't want to call it a death by 1,000 cuts, but it hurts, right? And I know my experiences have been pretty interesting in the sense of, since I speak on gender parity and driving efforts to close the racial wealth gap, I'm often asked why I do that. And I have to explain why I do that. And I realize no one ever asks me why I practice law. They never asked why I litigated. I never had to feel like I was defending myself, like I have to justify that I'm doing what I'm doing. And I realized my emotional move was by no means, right? By no means what a woman or a woman of color will feel in the corporate world, and an engineering woman of color in the corporate world. I'm not by any means saying it's that component, but I would go through a series of emotions where at first I'd want to answer your question. Okay, you asked, this is why I'm doing it. And you didn't seem satisfied with my answer. And then I had to give you another answer, and I had to give you another answer, ultimately to the point where I was done. Like, why do I have to tell you what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, right? And that's kind of the coach's experience of empathy. So what I do is if we're going to boil it down, girls in STEM, it's going to come from parental coaching. We know that parents that emphasize and encourage their girls are 2 times more likely to continue in that career. So we know it's parental coaching. We know that we have to be aware of social norms, and I'll touch on that very briefly as pulling it down. Institutional bias, and then lack of information, right? Kendra will talk about eroding the lack of information. I love JC's explanation of those practical learning experiences. But what I'm asking everybody on this call to do, if they are a man or they're not directly involved in girls in STEM, is to be that coach and then to be aware of those social norms. So I'm going to give one quick story. Coaching first grade basketball. Coach my son, I coach my daughter. They're about 3 years apart. I remember when I was sitting with my son first in first grade, and I put the ball in front of the boys circling, and I said, grab the ball. And I had 10 boys all on me trying to grab the ball. And I said the same thing to my girls team. And they all sat back and they looked at it, and they looked at the other girl and they said, well, you can grab it. And I said, no, grab the ball. And one is not right, one is not wrong by any means. But as the coach, I know their strengths and I know their weaknesses. And I know my daughter specifically wants to be perfect in everything she does. So as the coach, I will allow her to be perfect by what I say being perfectly brave. So step up, take a risk, and do that perfectly.
All right, appreciate it. I love that, right? I mean, but I think, Claire, we've got to have those collisions, girls. We've got to, be more aggressive and be proud of being aggressive, right? So, all right. So not last, not least by any means, because Kendra, you're the one that's living this with our girls. You're the one, that has, who's leading the way, who's, helping figure out not just STEM for one, but STEM for all. So you've been an educator for 22 years, and I'm still impressed that you started out in chemistry and wanted to be pre-med, but yet and it's not that if you can't do it, teach, right? That's not it, right? You're taking your passion for STEM and actually driving this. So we have more doctors, and that's what we need more of. I mean, we couldn't do this without our teachers by any means, and hats off to them. I tried it for a little while, and that's another story. So anyway, so what I want to talk about, because you're living it, you have the girls that we are funding programs for at High Tech High Hills. So what changes in STEM do you see in the schools that can get girls more excited, in STEM early on? And I'll have to do a plug for my daughter. If y'all didn't see the social media, there's a video of me interviewing my daughter about, STEM and how she got excited about it. So, Kendra, that's one of those things. And are the numbers showing us, right? Are more girls exploring STEM these days, right? What are the opportunities in school, especially at the elementary and middle school? And then, you know what? You've got the last word, and hopefully we're going to have a few moments for some questions, but you've got the last word. How do we get involved? with the schools, with our girls, to what Tom's point, and how do we bring it together through partnership mentoring? So Kendra, I'm turning it over to you.
Awesome, awesome. So thanks everybody for having me. And I want to start with the numbers because that's important for us to give us perspective about the urgency with what we are attempting to do, inspiring the next generation of our bold and future female leaders in STEM. And so two things that through my research and through the work that I've been doing in partnership with Texas Instruments Foundation and the two school districts that I've had the pleasure and honor of working in with STEM, is we've been looking at, you know, a lot of the myths that people speak to about STEM and girl participation. And so one of those myths that we have completely dispelled is the one that boys are more interested in STEM than girls, and that they perform better in math and science. But in contradiction, research shows that there's really minor or not even significant differences in the, you know, girls and boys performance and achievement in math and science. That's the first thing, right? But then the second thing that I think is a glaring reality is that there's 60% of people who they say that it's not the fact that girls aren't interested in STEM, they don't see female role models in STEM. And so one of the pieces that drives the work that we have been doing in Richardson ISD and previously in Lancaster ISD was looking at exposing our students to STEM education as early as pre-K. What we know is that, and Tom, I know you mentioned this briefly, but what we know is that exposure is key. And how we manage the engagement and exploration of STEM with our students, we have to start doing it sooner than later. And a lot of the programming and a lot of the initiatives that have happened over the last decade were focused on secondary kids. And, you know, we started to wonder, why don't we have more girls who are interested in STEM and who actually go on and pursue post-secondary opportunities in STEM? A lot of times it's because they didn't have a visual. And so we adopted this quote and we say, you can't be what you can't see. And so it has been my mission to immerse our girls and all students in figures in STEM that are hidden. And so one of the things that we're doing is providing extracurricular opportunities in addition to the things that we're doing in the classroom with STEM. We're bringing in professionals in industry. They are providing an authentic audience to our students when we engage in problem-based learning. We partner with them not only to provide resources, but sometimes human capital. We bring them into our schools to support our career days as guest speakers. Anytime we feel that we can, expose our kids to the professionals who are doing this work every day and can really inform what it takes to get to those professions and those careers. And if we can give our kids an opportunity to experience that, then we have more of a chance that upon graduation, they're going to pursue an interest or a career in STEM later. I will tell you this, that partnerships are powerful. And since I've been a part of the transformation of STEM for All in the state of Texas, there have been some very key partnerships that I've engaged in and that I continue to pursue. A lot of that work is rooted in what the Girl Scouts are doing, Design, Connect, Create. We work a lot with Texas Instruments Foundation, Black Girls Who Code, Girls Who Code. I mean, we are trying our best to connect with those people and those professionals that can inform and provide a visual. That's our thing. We need a visual. Our girls can't be what they can't see. And a lot of times they don't even know what they need to learn or how to prepare for the careers. And we all know that there are careers that currently we don't even know exist, but we're committed to making sure that those soft skills and those, opportunities to mentor and expose are built into our curriculum plan beginning in pre-K. And I'll tell you, as you can see with J.C. Cheney, there is a lot to say about summer bridge camps and girls being connected with those partnerships, working on projects that matter. I had an opportunity to work with the Wings of Hope Foundation and Experience Aviation out of Miami, Florida, to provide a summer experience that turned into a year-long STEM project, and we called it You Can Build Anything. And the students were able to connect with the Captain Barrington Irvin Jr. and build a Cessna 182 single engine aircraft that now flies medical missions in Nicaragua. So not only are our kids learning about STEM and getting a chance to experience things they never have, they're making an impact on a community. They're making a global impact. And so that's why this is a little bit more than just who does well in math and science. I have a daughter, she's 11, and I want her to feel like she can step into any career, any profession that she chooses. I like to think that my last 22 years was sacrificial. I knew that I could have been one more pediatrician, but why not create 1 million more pediatricians?
Absolutely.
So I spent my career trying to bring my experiences in industry as a chemist into the education world so that there was more authenticity and so that kids could realize that, hey, I was a cheerleader, I was a majorette, but I also took engineering design graphics. And I also went to summer camps nerdy for STEM and for physics. I was in STEM clubs as early as 6th grade. But what I didn't see until I was a professional were other STEM professionals who looked like me. And so with work like what you guys are doing with High Tech High Heels and the partnerships that we are building and bridging in Richardson ISD, we continue to create pathways for our girls and for all of our students to pursue careers in STEM. I love STEM so much, and I want to impart that love of STEM on the kids that we serve in our school district.
Well, thanks, Kendra. I think we've got 2 minutes. So I thought I saw, Fern, did I see a couple of questions?
You did. Okay, I will read one off the chat. It's from an attendee. I do believe that STEM careers provide a pathway to change the trajectory for many Black families. How would you encourage more STEM nonprofit leaders to engage with entrepreneurs?
Whoa, man. All three of you could take that. Do you, each one of you just want to give a few sentences about it? Because Claire, y'all are doing the biotech, center at UT Southwestern. Tom, you're doing that, and I think so. Let's each one of you give just a real short answer, and I think that'll put us right at about time. And if we have others, we'll. And before you answer that, if we run out of time to get to other questions, please put it in if you want to connect with one of our panelists. I know Kendra wants everybody's name that's here. So, and UT Southwestern can always take volunteers too as well. And Tom will put you to work over, at the Study USA. So please make sure, we don't lose your information. If you want to meet one of our panelists, do. But I think that's a lovely, great question to end with. And Claire, I'll let you give just a brief answer to it, and then Tom, and then Kendra.
We're doing, we've got at UT Southwestern, we've got some programs right now where we seek out both high school students and really focus on those underrepresented groups in the STEM fields, both women and people of color, where those students are able to come to campus, learn how to work in a lab, and actually start to get trained in that scientific method, to ask those questions, have a hypothesis, have the curiosity, and understand how you might find that question out. We are also starting the work because we're launching a Biotech Hub, which you might have seen recently in partnership with Lyda Hill Philanthropies, called Pegasus Park. It's part of a redevelopment of the ExxonMobil headquarters. And in there, we're going to be really making an incubator for companies that will be coming out of the science that's being developed at UT Southwestern. And so we're starting the work on campus to work with the career and tech high schools as well as the community college districts to look at what do those apprentice programs look like? How can we help people get the education while also making money, having a job as a lab tech, and move through that career path in a way that makes it more accessible. The idea that going to 4 years of undergrad and then 5 years of a PhD program, or 4 years of undergrad and 4 years medical school, that's not accessible to everybody. So how do we do this in a way that then becomes accessible and is something that we can do as a stepwise process? So we've started the work with our HR department to start putting together that curriculum and understanding how we can start bringing those kids in to have kind of a combined work-study program and get those skills so they can then have a job and move through that career path.
All right, Tom?
Yeah, well, very briefly, what Claire is working on in Pegasus Park is similar to the efforts that we've been pulling together. So I'm happy to have anyone reach out to me to talk about that. But I saw another question in the chat really around how the pandemic impacts STEM. And I look at it as a teaching moment, and it begins with awareness. So a lot of the families that we're talking about, racial makeup aside, are really under-resourced, and they don't have the information or the awareness. So this creates an opportunity, in my opinion, to teach what science and technology do relative to solving the pandemic and the various roles, from contact tracing to the science and development and drug development. So I think it starts with conversation and awareness.
And Kendra.
So I'm going to speak to the piece about the entrepreneurship and STEM. And it was actually an impetus for us designing a STEM management pathway. And one of the things that we recognize is that we provide a lot of technical skills to our students when we start talking about STEM. And oftentimes we forget those general employability skills and or that financial literacy piece. And so, as early as elementary school, we're talking about the impact on STEM in a community. We have to tap into economic and workforce solutions and start to, join forces with not just the bigger corporations, but the smaller businesses as well, to provide kind of a safe place for our kids to explore, learn more about their community, learn more about STEM that are in the jobs that, are part of those businesses. But I think for us, early exposure and making those partnerships be more about, just purchasing or providing resources, but be more like advocacy partners or strategic partners where we could really connect on what the needs are with our economy and how we in the education world can support providing that next pool of talented STEM professionals that can fill those jobs.
Well, I wish we had another hour, right, to solve all the problems of the world right here, because we've had some great questions, but we've come to an end. I bet, my husband's sitting here giving us time, and it's like, man, it's been an engaging conversation, and it's almost like you don't want it to end. But we've come to an end. And again, I want our audience to know that we want to connect with you. We want you to connect with the people that are here, because as you see, this is where it starts. It starts for our 4 girls, but it also starts for all the girls that are out there. So please, please, please share your information, reach out, and I'm going to turn it back over to Allison. And thanks, Claire, Tom, and Kendra for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, truly, thank you so much to Claire, Tom, and Kendra for the insights, and thank you to Jaren for hosting. And thank you so much to our nominees, Raul, Wanda, and Carlin, for all that you do and for being with us today. Congratulations, Raul. We appreciate all of you guys spending 45 minutes with us tonight. Maybe we're at 49 minutes now, but hopefully it's been an engaging experience. If you have questions, we'd love to continue to receive those. We will send out a follow-up. We'd like to thank State Farm and Kathy Curry for sponsoring us tonight. And we will very much look forward to communicating with you going forward. Follow us on social media, sign up for our emails, and we will be in touch. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.